I would like to have a night of passion with Kelly Brook, OK?
What? Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the two mics on the warm-up. Tears being shed around the world for Claudio Ranieri, as if his being fired is the saddest story anyone has ever heard. People need to get a grip, he's walked away with £3 million, so can we have a bit less of the misery fest and talk of football losing its soul? Might actually agree with Porky on this one. It was all lost a very long time ago and it's time to move on. 08717 22 3344. Coming up, we got a 1 minute moan and we'll bring you team news from Leeds, Sheffield Wednesday at the top of the Championship. That kicks off at 12:30. You're listening to the two mics with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics on the warm-up. It's a big weekend, of course. We've got the EFL Cup final coming up tomorrow. We'll be doing a show from 1 till 3. Right now, though, time to say a very good morning, Mr. Mike, a Porky Parry. Very good morning to Mr. Parry.
And a very good morning to you, Mike. And
why are you clapping your hands?
What?
Why are you clapping your hands?
Well, it's a term of endearment for the show. You know what I mean?
Excitable this morning.
No, I'm not very excitable at all.
What's that peeking out of your bag, by the way?
Sorry, what?
What's that peeking out of your bag?
Nothing. That's my
you sure there's
headphones.
Got a can of something in there?
No.
It's not one of those cans that you can buy with Bacardi and Coke.
No,
no,
don't be.
What is it?
There's
It's
nothing.
a Red Bull.
No, it's not.
It's a can of Red Bull.
What?
You have got a can of Red Bull in it. I thought you were told not to drink that anymore.
Oh, I didn't notice. Somebody
You
put it in
no,
there.
somebody must have put it in there.
Not to worry.
In a faux leather bag.
Oh, I've just dropped it on the desk. Well, I didn't notice that. Yeah. Anyway,
shake it up.
No, listen,
Can we not talk about Claudio Ranieri, please?
We're going to talk him very briefly.
I don't want to talk about Claudio
Very
Ranieri. I mean,
briefly.
you would think it was like the death of Princess Diana. It's unbelievable.
We're very briefly going to sum it up and then we will move on. But, last night, the outpouring of emotion, and I was about to say this is all getting a bit mushy and a bit marshmallowish.
Have you seen that ridiculous column in a newspaper that I won't name, but that once fired me, in which it's suggested that yesterday was the day football lost its soul?
I'll tell you
really?
it is. I'll tell you it is. It's Robbie Savage, right? And
why do you have to mention his name?
Well, because he's got his name on it. It's in a national newspaper.
He's got a book out, hasn't he?
And no, he had a book out.
Ah.
Didn't do a lot well, I'm afraid. Yeah. But that's totally different. I mean, the point is, I get on very well with Robbie. We've worked together in the past.
Yeah, you worked with him once, didn't you?
I did, yes.
But only once.
No.
Twice.
Two occasions. But anyway, look, so the headline, Ranieri sacking made me feel ill. It was the shameful day that football lost its soul.
Yeah.
I
Really?
need to put this question to Monsieur Savage and everybody else.
Yeah.
And he used to play for Leicester, of course, with great distinction.
Great distinction?
Yeah, had the owners of the club, had the chairman, Mr. Vichai Srivadhana Prahaba... What's your problem? What's your problem?
Nothing.
What are you mocking?
I'm not mocking anything. It's just the way you say it.
Well, go on, you pronounce it then.
I don't want to pronounce it.
Mr. Vichai Srivadhana Prahaba, that's his name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anna Prabha. I think it's Anna Prabha, actually.
It's
not Anna Prahaba.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
So just keep your mouth shut
That's
if
fine.
you can't engage in the cultural discussion.
How do you say it again?
I'm not saying it again. Now, the owner of the club, right,
Yeah.
if he hadn't taken action and Leicester City went down and were relegated,
Yes.
would all the people in the huge outpouring of emotion yesterday have said, oh, well, that's a better solution?
No, I think they would have blamed the players.
Then the
I think
chairman
they would have blamed the players
actually
because
having
the
to take
players.
action.
Guess what? The players actually are to blame. It is not Claudio Ranieri's fault. And in fact, as I said to Andy and Cass just there,
Well, they can't change the players.
he can walk away with his head held high, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can change the players, actually, because they lost their best player in the last transfer window in the summer.
Not with 13 games of the season left.
No.
You cannot change all your players.
But they're going to have to change their attitude. But my point is that
Well,
here's a
somebody's
guy...
got to change their attitude for them, and Mr. Ranieri clearly wasn't up to doing that. That's the whole point.
There may be many reasons for that. My point is that he can now walk away with his head held high. He doesn't have to be known as the manager who won the Premier League last year and then took his team down the following year, because he can always say, well, of course I would have kept them up. Right?
Yes.
He's got £3 million, right?
I
All this nonsense about, my dream has died. Really? I mean, get a grip of yourself, man.
Well,
this
exactly.
is football we're talking about.
I don't think the dream has died. I think the dream
It's
is
not some
there.
kind of Shakespearean tragedy.
No, the dream...
Although bizarrely, the guy who's in charge is actually called Shakespeare.
Yeah, that's right. It is.
How weird is that?
Yeah. But he won the Premier League, and that was a brilliant achievement, and that's it. What I do find very
but
odd...
that's what he'll be remembered for. He won't be remembered for taking them down into the Championship because he's not in charge anymore.
Exactly, that's absolutely right. And to that extent, I think, that sort of closes the envelope. Except to say, the Leicester City players summoned to Wednesday's meeting with owner Mr. Vishai Srivadhana Prabha, which effectively...
That was not even the same way as you did it the last time.
Which effectively ended Claudio Ranieri's reign, included Kasper Schmeichel, Wes Morgan, Mark Albrighton and Jamie Vardy. The group of senior players met their chairman, at the team hotel in Seville following the 2-1 Champions League defeat and were asked for their observations on the team's decline from last season's Premier League.
Can I just point out that on the show yesterday that we did here on TalkSport, you were claiming that this was probably not something that actually took place. You said it was all speculation.
No, I did not.
That the players had a meeting with the senior management and also the owners.
No. What I said was, and this has been vindicated this morning in detailed analytical reports, is that the decision was made before the game in Seville, and it was.
Yes, well, I don't doubt that. And I agreed with your point about that yesterday. But what you said was that you didn't believe that the players had been dissing the manager to the owners.
No, I didn't say that. What I said it's, that is something that we'll never know about. That took place in closed rooms.
We are finding out about it now.
Yeah,
there's
but we
more
don't know
detail
what they
today.
Said. We don't know what they said.
We know that they didn't say anything nice because otherwise you'd still be there.
But you see, I read this so brilliantly well because one of the headlines this morning: owners let Ranieri take charge in Seville, but his fate had already been sealed.
Yes, because they were hoping, you see, that he would get slaughtered because everybody else thought they're going to get beaten about 7-0 by Sevilla. But in fact, they had one of the great performances of the year. So, it's all gone horribly wrong. But all this nonsense about, this terrible, sad day and, the death of football and we've lost our soul. Yeah. I mean, people actually lost their marbles.
Yes, I think they have.
What about the wine spree that the owner was on?
I was going to say,
that's a much better story.
The only thing you seem to want to be talking about is wine. Now, what are you up to?
Well, it's a much better story because until this moment, I did not know of an organisation called Hedonism Wines.
No, that's right.
But it sounds like something I should be a member of.
It does.
It's a little bit rich for my blood, I'm afraid. I probably wouldn't be able to afford the wine at £120,000 a bottle. However, they do have ordinary wine for as little as 10 or 12 quid. So I'm thinking of going and signing up.
Are you?
Yeah.
Here we go.
It's in Mayfair.
Yeah. Hang on. It says here that now what we're talking about here is we're talking about the Leicester chairman, Mr. Vichai Srivadhanaprabha.
That's not bad.
Being at a wine merchant's and actually...
Hedonism Wines.
Yeah, the headline says Fox's chairman brags of axing Ranieri during a £500,000 wine spree. I doubt that very much indeed. I think the man's got more... Well, I'm not doubting the headline. I'm doubting that he
supposedly he was
felt
in the
that
shop.
He was bragging or anything like that.
He was in the shop and he supposedly nonchalantly told another customer that he was just in the midst of sacking Claudio Ranieri and he was laughing and joking about it.
Well, yes, but I mean, there's no witnesses to that, so we'll have to say that is a report. Now, what I was going to say is that he was spending up to £500,000 on wine. His Bentley was parked outside, apparently. But do you know what some of the wine he bought was?
Go on.
144,092 bottles of Blue Nun.
What?
Yeah.
142,000 bottles of Blue Nun.
144,000.
Are you sure you're reading that right?
Let me just get this right.
That can't be right.
You
must be getting it wrong.
Hang on. The shop where the Leicester chairman bought his booze all is a favourite with wine connoisseurs, right? So, here we go.
That's what he could have bought, right?
Oh, I see. That's what he could have bought. Sorry, yes. For
heaven's sake. I mean, why would you go to Hedonism Wines, where wine costs 120 grand?
That's right.
To buy some 150,000 bottles of Blue Nun.
Let me get this right.
That's more like your order at Asda's.
What they're saying is, for what he spent, the £500,000, where some of the bottles literally cost... 19,600 or 12,000 or cheaply 2,580, he could have gone to Asda and bought 144,092 bottles of Blue Nun.
Well, I'm glad we sorted that one out.
I mean, most people wouldn't want one bottle of Blue Nun, so that's a non-starter.
Have you bought any wine lately?
Not Blue Nun.
No?
Pinot. Yes.
How many, what sort of bottle quantity do you get?
Do you know, I'm going to tell you something amazing now.
Are you?
I went to Wetherspoons yesterday because it's Friday to have...
Did you go there every Friday?
No, but I had time. I'd been to our publishers, actually. And had a good meeting with them, no problem at all. And you, of course, weren't there. You'd shot off.
No, I was going to pick my children up from school.
No, you weren't. You were going off to start the weekend bladderation.
No, I was going to pick my children up from school. If you like, I'll get my son on, shall I? No. So that he can say, actually, I did pick him up at 3:10.
How dare you use your children to lie for you. Now, what I was going to say is, so I leave the publishers and I go off to this very nice Wetherspoons.
Anywhere local?
Southampton Row.
Oh, right.
So, that's pretty high class.
So there's nobody fighting in that one, then?
Nobody fighting.
Or at least if they're fighting, they're barristers.
No. So anyway, and I then actually left there and went to another Wetherspoons in Stockbroker Belt.
So you've been to 2 Wetherspoons on the Friday?
Yes, I have, yes.
Which one did you have the fish and chips in?
The second one. But get this, I couldn't believe it.
What a life you live.
No, get this. So I said to the guy, thank you very much, I'll have a pint of beer. Right, so I had a pint
Have they started putting the calories on them yet? You know, you told me they were going to start putting a calorie count on the glass.
So here we go. So I get a pint of Ruddles, right?
Yeah.
Which is only £1.90, I think.
Yeah.
You know, or something like that.
Great.
Fish and chips.
Yes.
Right. But then I didn't realise the deal is you get the free pint of beer when you order your fish and chips.
Yeah.
I then ordered a pint of Pinot Grigio.
A pint?
No, sorry, a bottle. Sorry, no.
Freudian slip.
Yeah, Freudian
You've
slip.
seen the time, by the way.
Well, hang on, I've just got to finish this.
So how many pints did you have in the first Wetherspoons?
3.
3 pints?
Yes.
You get to the second Wetherspoons,
Yes.
so you've had a pint of Ruddles, that's 4 pints, then followed by a pint of wine.
No. I had a bottle of wine to go with my fish and chips.
Right, so it's still 4 pints and a bottle of wine.
Yes, that's
right. Do you
right.
know what the actual average intake, alcohol unit-wise, is supposed to be on a daily basis?
Yeah, but in the first Wetherspoons, I was de-stressing with our publishing agent.
That's 22 units already.
Well, don't even worry about that. It's Friday afternoon. Everybody's allowed to have a drink at the end of the week,
Of course, yeah.
Now, so what happens then is I then hand the chap behind the bar a £20 note,
right.
and I say, I'm sorry, is that enough?
Yeah.
And he says, oh, it's plenty. Do you know how much the whole thing cost?
How much?
£16.50.
What, for the bottle of wine,
Yeah.
fish and chips,
Yeah.
and a free pint?
Yes. The fish and chips is about £6.50.
I think you were done.
No, and the wine's about £9.90 or something like that. It was an amazing bargain. I don't know why everybody in the world doesn't use it, I have to say.
And you're a millionaire, right?
Oh, and by the way, sorry, 2 rounds of bread and butter. Yeah. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, it's the showbiz life you lead.
Well, what I do is when I've eaten my fish and chips, there's a few chips left on the plate, and then I have 2 chip butties.
Dear.
Brilliant. Yeah.
How long were you in there for?
About 2 hours. What's your problem? Huh?
Nothing.
What's your problem?
This is Talk Sport. We will be talking about some of the football coming up over the course of the weekend.
Who's the real snob around here?
There's no sour grapes, Claudio, it says in one of the papers. Well, tell him to stop whining about getting £3 million and not being blamed for taking Leicester down.
The chairman had plenty of grapes.
What's his name?
Oh, forget it, you oaf.
Got a couple of interesting tweets in, Porky.
Yep.
One's from Robbie Savage.
Oh, yeah?
He says, thanks for the mention, boys. He says, I've also written 2 bestsellers.
Yeah, OK, well, I'm very pleased. Well done, Robbie. Thank you very much for contacting us. It's a pleasure.
It's great to know he's listening to our show instead of the other one on the other station.
Oh, well, we don't talk about
who he works for. But never mind. Ryan says this. Did Porky have a stroke halfway through pronouncing the Leicester chairman's name? Hashtag Blake.
No.
Here's one from Pete. 4 pints of beer and a pint of wine. Cracking start to the weekend, Porky.
Yeah.
And Paul Alderson says, 4 pints and a bottle of wine and fish and chips. I thought Porky had a dodgy heart. I hope his consultant isn't listening.
Oh, come off it. It was, I don't drink all week. And then on a Friday afternoon, bit of winding down, you know what I mean?
Michael says, Porky's £10 an hour drinking spree. I'm crying.
Oh, dear me, that's terrible.
Absolutely shocking. Now,
yes.
because of the business that we have been in,
yes,
right, obviously there have been quite a few, shall we say, interesting sackings that have taken place over time.
Absolutely.
I mean, we were just talking about Ranieri's boss there, sort of wandering around a very expensive wine merchant and telling everyone that he was firing his manager, Claudio Ranieri.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have a few sacking stories, wasn't you?
Well, you've got the best sacking story. You're...
Well, I've only been sacked twice. Actually, 3 times.
No, I'm talking about somebody else being sacked in your presence.
Oh, what do you mean? Your
father-in-law?
My ex-father-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was rather interesting. But the trouble is... now that you've, I suppose, told everybody that he got sacked,
yes.
I don't know whether there's any point in telling the story.
Well, I think you should tell it anyway.
You think I should tell it anyway?
Briefly, yeah, please.
Well, it was when I was sort of just seeing his daughter.
That's right.
And she'd been studying in Britain for about a year.
Yes.
And I went back over to America. I was about 19. She was about 19.
Yes.
And I went
students.
We were students, yeah. She was in a junior year abroad. I was halfway through university.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'll go and spend the summer with her family, because it'd be quite nice to go to America.
Get to know them.
And they had a lovely house in Connecticut, and a swimming pool.
Yeah.
You know, one of those nice sort of white wooden houses that they
Excellent.
have up there near Danbury.
Clapperboard
near Danbury.
Lovely.
And it was quite an old house, I think. It was sort of 17th century, which
near
for
old mate George, actually.
Very old, yes, indeed. Anyway, so as these things are, the dad was quite old-fashioned. He'd come from somewhere like Oklahoma, out of the Dust Bowl.
Oklahoma?
Yeah.
You walk around with a pitchfork?
Well, almost. I mean, he could have been a character out of an Edward Hopper picture.
That's right, yeah.
And he was very sort of straightforward, very straight-laced. I mean, for example, I wasn't allowed to sleep in the same bed as his daughter.
Well, I should hope not at 19.
What do you mean?
Yeah, it's disgraceful. Yeah,
well, anyway, so I had to sleep like downstairs in some kind of ante-room.
Did you creep up in the night?
No.
Ooh.
No, I took her out to the swimming pool.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Right, I see.
Anyway, don't
Too
talk
much
about
information.
that. Too much information.
Go on, yeah.
It's a family show. Anyway, so the next day after I'd arrived, one day later, he said, do you want to come for a drive? I'll show you where I work. And I said, yeah, okay. And I sort of assumed, because I came from Britain, that he would work somewhere about sort of 20 minutes down the road.
Yeah, that's right,
So I get in his car. He had this old Cutlass Supreme, massive car.
Yeah.
And we start driving.
6-litre engine.
6-litre engine. The doors were longer than, most English cars.
Yeah.
And we're driving for about an hour.
Good
and having all this kind of small talk. And it turned out he worked in New Jersey.
Right.
Because he was a
Blimey,
salesman.
that's a drive.
Yeah, we were driving for about 2 hours.
Good
2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And it was only after about the first hour that I asked him where we were going. And he said, well, we're going over to New Jersey, which is where I work. And he was a travelling salesman, basically.
Right.
He sold industrial rubber products.
Industrial rubber?
For things like, fixing roads and, when you... It was all kind of mafia connected as well.
Yeah,
because, it was all sort of Teamsters Union stuff and
I know what you mean.
building Highway 95 and all that. Anyway, so he worked for this rubber company, which made tyres and all sorts of things, and had this big warehouse over in New Jersey. So in the second hour, he started talking to me about my intentions towards his daughter, and
you said they just want to get her down the swimming pool
whether they were honourable.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, absolutely right. Of course, I think she's wonderful. Blah blah blah. So we had a very sort of bonding kind of conversation.
Right.
And we got to the big factory place. I can't remember what the name of it was. It wasn't Pirelli, but it was somebody like
something like that. Firestone or something.
Yeah, it was something like that. And so we pulled into this very large area, which was like a sort of lorry park more than a car park.
Sure.
And he said, I'm just going to go in and see my boss for a few minutes. See the guys, say hello. I don't think there's any reason for you to come in, so you just wait here in the car. So I said, yeah, okay then. And I'm thinking, I've got to go 2.5 hours all the way back with this guy now, having told him. And he wasn't the most interesting man on the planet.
Exactly, yeah.
Anyway, about 10 minutes go by. I'm sort of looking around, and he comes back out, and he looked a bit pale.
It looked a bit wan.
Looked a bit pale.
Yeah.
And he gets in the car and just sort of sat there. It didn't start the engine or anything, and just stared straight ahead. I said, "You all right?" He went, "Yeah." I said, what's the problem? He said, I've just been fired.
Oh, God.
And he'd been working there for literally
30
20
years
or 30 years.
Yeah.
And he'd just, every Saturday he would pop in to see the guys.
Yeah.
And so I then had to drive all the way back to the house, knowing that,
this man who was at the worst moment of his life.
And in America, you didn't have a job like we had where you get paid off a load of money. No. You just go, you're fired. That's it. No money. No compensation.
You normally get a pink slip in 2 weeks' wages.
Well, something like that, but you didn't get, what I'm saying is, you didn't get a payoff.
No, you didn't get
3 million like Claudio Ranieri.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And it was an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was very traumatic for me.
I'm sure.
And for him.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, sackings are always good to look back on, aren't they? Because when I...
Didn't you sack the wrong guy once?
I sacked the wrong guy.
Yeah.
What happened was the editor came storming at my office and said, so-and-so is hopeless and... we've got
to get rid of him.
We've got to get rid of him. And I was working for an organisation where when they said get rid, they mean get rid now. Not, OK, I'll work on it and ease him out gently. No, it's get rid,
Right.
So the guy he was talking about was based in the north. So I get on the phone and I ring this guy, and he's actually got the builders there because I have an extension built on the house, you know. And I said, I can't even remember his name, so I'm just going to use a name. I say John.
That's great that you can't even remember the name of the guy you fired. This is why people hate you.
Yeah, well, no, I don't think so.
Because they're so insignificant to you. You ruined this guy's life.
Yeah, well, I was actually, but I had to do it really because that was my job. So I said, "Hi, John. I've got on very well with them. They all really admired me, for my dynamism and all that kind of stuff." I said, "Look," I'm really sorry to have to tell you this, but we're having a bit of a shake-up here in the department and all that, and I'm afraid that..."
I can imagine you do this with great tact as well.
I did. I said, "I'm afraid that I'm going to have to lay you off." What? I said, "Look," and I could hear a baby crying in the background, which made it worse.
Sorry.
And he said, "What?" I said, "Look, I'm awfully sorry." I said, I'm going to shake up. No, I'm moving things. I've got to move things around. It's for the good of the paper. It's not personal.
Yeah, that's always helpful when you hear that.
Yeah. I'm really, really sorry, pal. And he said, "I've got the builders here." I said, "Have you? What's the problem?" He said, "I'm having a new extension built on the house." I said, "Oh dear." I said, "Well, anyway, look, I'm sure."
Anyway, I've got to get on.
Yeah, if I can give you a decent reference and get a job somewhere else, I will. Thanks very much. Bye. Yeah. So anyway, about 3 hours later, that was sort of just before lunch, they just come steaming into the office, kicking the things around, said, "I thought I told you to get rid of John." I said, "I have, he's gone."
Yeah.
He said, "No, he hasn't." I said, "He's gone. I've done it. I did the deed." "Oh, really? Come with me." Walk out into the newsroom.
Right.
He points to some bloke sitting in the corner and says, "He's still here." I said, Oh, that John.
Right.
I said, right, okay. So
you had to call the other guy back.
I had to call the other guy back, re-employ him.
Right.
But unfortunately, his wife had spent the last 3 hours crying. The baby was traumatised. Yeah. And he told the builders to push off and cancel the extension to the house.
It's a shocking story.
No, it's
absolutely appalling.
Story.
Terrible stuff.
Terrible. Listen, I just want to clear something up.
Yes?
Old Robbie Savage has sent us a couple of tweets.
I've already mentioned them.
I know, but he's got into the spirit of things. I have to make it clear, because I was at a publishing agent yesterday. The book I referred to, when you said I didn't do too well, Rob actually wrote that as a favour to a publishing house who had a gap in their schedules last year for Christmas. So it was, it was a hastily arranged publication. So whatever happened to it certainly wasn't Robbie's fault. So
is that right?
Just want to put that straight.
Well, you don't have to come crawling to him now just because he's tweeted the show.
I'm not, but it's a bit unfair, isn't it? If you say something and you're staying,
you just can't leave it alone, can you?
No, you're staying in somebody's.
I'm worried about you. I think
clear.
You know what I'm worried about. I'm very worried about you. I'll tell you why. Because you're spending way too much time in Wetherspoons, right?
Also, 1 day a week.
Also,
Fridays I go fishing.
A couple of tweets have come in saying, Porky only gets blatherated on days of the week with the word "day."
Oh, yeah, that's very nice.
But what is going on in Stockbroker Belt, Surrey? Because I see that all of your mates, right, your rich friends in their Volvos and their Bentleys, have decided to join forces with the old eco warriors to fight oil drilling. I thought you wanted them to drill oil in Surrey.
I do. It's shameful. It's a place called Cold Harbour.
I thought you'd see yourself as a sort of modern day JR. Come and frack under my house.
That's right. It's a place called Cold Harbour. It's a very prosperous, wealthy village down there. Very close to me indeed. And what's happened is the old eco warriors, the old what were they
Swampy.
Called? Swampy, that's right. Yeah, Swampy.
I wonder where Swampy is. If I was still in the newspapers, I'd go and find Swampy. Well, I bet he's working in the post office or something.
He probably is. And
maybe he's working in Wetherspoons.
Yeah, maybe he is. Maybe they've joined up with local residents, and they both sort of got together now, building these roadside camps and this sort of wooden pallet type encampment, right?
Wooden pallet type encampment.
Yes, it is. I'm not joking. They've knocked up a tower and fences and all that. They're trying to keep the drillers for fracking away from there. And I'm sorry, but life has to go on. They say, well, it's an area of outstanding natural beauty, and it's green belt and all that. But I mean, this is NIMBYism at its worst. If we're going to get the price of fuel down in this country, we've got to do what America did and press ahead with fracking. Everybody's giving it the go ahead, and now the local residents are protecting Surrey from pollution.
Yeah.
There's no evidence that fracking pollutes anything, I would remind you.
But I mean, you wouldn't really necessarily want any seismic activity underneath the Porky penthouse, would you?
I wouldn't object because I'm not a hypocrite, and if somebody
You're
said...
not a hypocrite?
No.
News to me.
No. If somebody said, Mr. Parry, there's 8 billion barrels worth of shale gas or oil or something under your property, I'd say go ahead.
All right.
I mean, I'd tell them they'd have to buy my flat at double the price to start off with.
Yeah, but it would only be worth half as much, of course, because of the fracking. Yeah. How about this? There's quite a lot of tweets and texts coming in about people getting fired.
Right, okay.
But this, however, is my favourite of the day from Timo.
Yeah.
It says, Mike Parry is the Donald Trump of talk sport. No grasp of facts or truth.
What?
Makes it all up. Doesn't understand common people. Impeach him now.
What's he referring to?
He's referring to you. As the Donald Trump of talk sport.
Yeah, but hang on. When he says I don't have facts at my fingertips, I'm the most factual...
You see, that's something Donald Trump would say.
In history.
I am the most factual president you have ever met. I'm the best president of all time.
Yeah, that's right.
How about this from...
I can tell you this.
From Robbo. He says, I used to tarmac people's drives and I had to drive a digger for the first time and I was sacked for accidentally knocking somebody's wall down.
Yeah, well, that can help. When I drove the baker's van, I backed through a woman's fence. I was trying to turn the baker's van round in a little cul-de-sac.
Right.
In a very
Where
good
was
area.
this, in Chester?
In Chester, yeah, good area of town. And I mounted the pavement. And she was, actually, it was almost romantic. She was sunbathing in a very fetching bikini on her lawn, yeah. And
so almost romantic, as in you backed your truck through her house?
Right, yeah, that's right.
It's not really the greatest way to introduce yourself.
And knocked one of her trees down. Now, listen, talking about...
Was she upset?
No, she took it in good part, really. I was a strapping and handsome young man in those days.
You've never been strapping.
As I jumped out of the cab.
In fact, I'm actually remind you.
She thought I was a vision.
I meant to remind you, actually, just before Andy Townsend left.
Oh, yes.
He left me, in no uncertain terms, a message. He said, look, you've got to pick up Porky on the ugly team. Do you remember he put out the ugly team?
What was that?
Well, he said that he picked an ugly team of players.
Not me.
When he was... I think it was when he was at Aston Villa,
probably,
and he called them the Ugly Mugs 11.
Yeah.
And there's a piece here that he was showing.
Yes.
But he said the one thing they never picked was a manager.
Right.
And he said Porky would have been ideal.
Oh, that's very kind.
And I said, what do you mean, like, because he's short, fat and ugly? And he said,
look,
yeah, exactly.
I don't like going into those. I never dwell on people's, mistakes in their looks department.
Got Vinnie Samways in there,
Well,
Martin
that's
Keown,
terrible.
Matt Letizia,
Yeah.
Ian Dowie.
Well, you see, Dowie would now be the manager, wouldn't he? Because he very successfully managed Crystal Palace and one or two other clubs.
Kevin Moran, Alan Harper, John Walk, and of course he said the Coventry keeper, Steve Ogrizovic, apparently was so upset that he wanted to knock Andy's block off.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. And by the way, Johnny Walk wasn't ugly by any stretch of the imagination. When Johnny Walk
Have you seen his picture?
Hang on, when Johnny Walk, let's have a look. When Johnny Walk got that flowing sort of burrito type moustache, you know what I mean?
Burrito.
Yeah.
Well, like the flying burritos.
Yeah, that's right. He, I can tell you, when he played for Liverpool, he was a man much sought after. I'm telling you that.
Now, David says this: not knowing who was playing in the game in the Championship was a new low, even for Porky.
Oh, I was only teasing, honestly. Of course, I knew he was playing. Now, listen, I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about. I've
got something else to do.
No. One of my heroines this morning is Judge Heather Borcher.
What do you mean heroines?
Well, because she's standing up for the righteousness in society.
We're not doing heroes and villains.
No, not doing heroes and villains. I want to tell you about it because
we do that on Monday.
I know that this lady
Saturday today.
This lady, and we'll embarrass her, right? She goes to court. She wants damages because she went to Ronnie Scott's, the famous.
I've been there.
Jazz
Yeah,
club.
have you been there?
Yeah, I've been to late night ones there, drinking tequila slammers. I was very ill. I got very ill.
Why is every story about what you drank?
Oh, I don't know. We were drinking tequila slammers till 4 in the morning. I think Charlie Sale was there with me, actually. And
who?
Charlie Sale.
Well, Charlie Sale was drinking tequila slammers.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, that was he's
dangerous.
The guy, yeah. And many years ago, because
Mr. Byright, we used to call him.
That's right.
That's a story for another time.
It did. But anyway, so she goes there, and she tried to blame dim lighting. At the Soho club, she fell over and broke her wrist and elbow in a fall, right? Now, she wanted thousands in damages.
Right.
And it went to a civil trial hearing, and the judge was Judge Heather Borcher, QC.
Oh, yeah.
But she said that, actually, this woman didn't deserve any damages because in her inebriated, obese state on 3-inch platforms that would be an obvious, simple step for anyone, presented with what they saw as a hazard because of the condition in which she was in, she did not bother to take care by holding a banister as she went down the stairs.
Right.
So she said no. She missed a step outside an upstairs lounge, then tumbled down one flight, round a corner and down another. I mean, she came down the stairs like a blinking avalanche, you know what I mean?
Yes.
She
so
said,
the judge wasn't having any of it?
Judge wasn't having any of it. She, the woman complaining said it was dark, it was dim, and I didn't see my steps. I was going down. I tumbled over and over and over, and I injured myself very badly. I recall landing on my neck and the back of my head as well. But, no, you
get on well with
as far as the judge is concerned...
So what did the judge call her?
No. Sorry?
What?
Sorry?
Didn't the judge call her a few names?
Well, I've just read it to you.
Yeah.
Fat, drunk and careless.
That's a bit harsh,
yeah,
isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Fat, drunk and careless.
Yeah, exactly. But
she spent the day in a couple of Wetherspoons before she went to Ronnie Scott's.
I never see drunks in Wetherspoons, to be honest. I think they are...
Have a look in the mirror.
I think... That's supposed to be... Is that the best you can come up with?
Yeah, it was very good, I thought, actually.
Schoolboy...
I'm very happy with that one.
Prank-like...
Anyway,
joke.
never mind that, because we haven't got time for this. Fat, drunk and careless, right? That's what it was.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Now, that, of course, is the music that tells you it is time for your 1 minute moan.
Right.
Now, I know you've got one prepared.
Have I?
So I'm prepared to let you go first.
How do you know that?
Because you told Andy and Cass when you were sitting in here earlier.
Yes.
You said that you were going to have a go at one of our top politicians.
I might have been lying.
In your 1 minute moan. Well, you might have been. It wouldn't
No,
be the
you
first
clearly
time.
haven't got a 1 minute moan. That's why you want me to go first, to give you time, don't you?
Yeah, or I could just be lulling you into a false sense of security.
Right, I will go first then.
Okay, then.
I will go first,
All
okay?
Right. See, I've confused you now, haven't I?
Right.
You're trying to work out my strategy, but you can't tell.
No.
So
you've got to count me down.
We've got a special executive producer today.
Right.
So you might be in with more of a chance of winning.
Well, I hope so.
Because
You've
Ross
got more
always
brains
gives
than our normal producer.
Yeah, well,
who
I
keeps
hope
giving
so.
it to you.
Well, do you know where our normal producer's gone?
Oh, yeah,
He's gone to Butlins for his stag do.
I know, yeah, I know.
Unbelievable.
Well, I mean,
How
no,
embarrassing.
no, that's a man of the people. I've been to that Butlins, and of course, I'm a Butlins boxing champion anyway, so
you say.
I have an affiliation
You've got
with
that
Butlins.
shiny new cup.
It's in Minehead, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, Minehead. It's great. I've been there. It's near a place called Dunster, and there's a castle
Well, it's
in
on
Dunster.
the North Shore of Somerset, isn't
Yeah,
it?
North Shore of Somerset, near Dunster, and Dunster's a great village. I've stayed there. I've stayed in the big
We've seen
hotel
the time,
there,
by
which
the
is
way.
built into the castle. Right, okay, you want me to go? I need the countdown, don't I?
Yes, would you please start the clock?
Right, my 1 minute moan is about Ed Balls, OK? This man has been annoying me greatly. Sorry?
You've done this one before.
I have not done this one before. Will you shut up? He's been annoying me greatly because he's been appearing on Strictly Come Dancing, right, and acting the oath.
Finished.
Hang on, shut up. And acting the oath because this is a man who was at the Treasury when the economy of this country almost bottomed out and rendered us all bankrupt. But it's got worse now. Mr. Balls now, right, you won't believe this, has now joined some speaking agency. He can get up to £50,000 a night to stand up and tell people what he knows about economics. Can I tell you this? That speech would last about 3 seconds, OK? Who gets paid £50,000 for 3 seconds? And why would you want Ed Balls to tell you how to run an economy when he very, very nearly ended the British economy for all time? I just don't get it, and I will not have it as a taxpayer.
Keep going.
Thank you.
Keep going.
Thank you.
It's still going.
I thought you'd appreciate that one. And remember, Ed Balls is a guy who prances around in Strictly Come Dancing. There you go. Yeah.
Talk about dragging your carcass over the finishing line. You know, I think if you were a horse, you would have had yourself done away with. Right. Well, are you ready for mine then?
Yeah. Go on.
Would you like to give me a countdown?
Such as it is.
Well, I mean, I might as well not bother after that pathetic attempt.
No. Don't be ridiculous. I think you'll find that in social media terms, I'll get the response very shortly. Right. I'm going to give you a 3, 2, 1, and then you go. Okay.
Okay.
Right. 3, 2, 1, go.
You and I have had many conversations about American politics, right? I'm about to go to America next week after this very show, and I may or may not be allowed into the country, but I'm going to go and visit members of my family. I'm going to test the temperature over there because my belief is, rather like in this country where the Labour Party are in such disarray that they can't even supposedly unseat a Tory candidate in a place that they've held for many, many, many decades, right?
Yep.
So over in America, guess who's having a go now? Jodie Foster. Jodie Foster, the star of Silence of the Lambs, has now said that it is time to rise up, OK? It's time to resist.
Yeah.
It's time to engage and to make sure that we are not in favour of warmongering, that we are not in favour of prejudice, and that we are not in favour of intolerance, even though we are very intolerant, right?
Okay.
She has joined a crowd of 1,200 people in Beverly Hills, headquarters of the United Talent Agency, who have cancelled their Oscars party to stage a demo and give money to charity to stop a guy who was democratically elected by the rest of the country.
Okay.
Cobblers.
Yeah. I don't think you can possibly claim victory there because that has no relevance whatsoever to the British working person for whom
do you mean apart from the mention of the actual by-election that took place this week?
Whom I represent.
Well, I mean, we will find out after the news.
Yes, of course we will.
Precisely what the executive producer thinks of our 1 minute moans.
Indeed.
I can tell you we'll be getting loads on Twitter as well.
I got my mind set on you. I got my mind set on you. I got my mind set on you. Got my mind set on you. But it's gonna take money.
Got this tweet from Paul who says, Porky's 1 minute moan was shocking. He's done the same one about 3 times now.
No.
I think those 4 pints of Ruddles have taken their toll.
No.
Tom doesn't agree. Landslide win for Mr. Parry.
Thank you very much indeed.
He says MG was not at his best today.
So at least you're balancing it up now, eh?
Well, I always balance it up. But listen, if I see a tweet, I read it out. The problem with you is that when you see a tweet, you try and alter it and make it sound as if it's in your favour.
Yes.
Scottish Bull says, Parry as usual is talking rubbish. I granted the guy is a massive walloper, but Porky again stuttered and stammered over the line.
Yeah, by the way, did I mention during the rant about Ed Balls that it's actually his 50th birthday today?
You didn't?
No, I didn't. Oh,
No.
that was the whole point of it, actually.
Oh,
so
really?
just to let you know...
Well, you could have used that to fill out the last 10
his
seconds.
50th birthday, but I'll tell you who else's birthday it is, and that's why we've just played that wonderful tune from one of the Fab Four. George Harrison was born on this day.
What is that tune?
That's I Got My Mind Set on You.
Yeah, from one of his solo albums, right?
Yeah, it wasn't the Travelling Wilburys, was it?
No.
He did the Travelling Wilbury album.
No,
with,
that was later.
Bob Dylan.
Tom Petty.
Tom Petty.
Roy Orbison.
And the lad from ELO, Jeff Lynne, that's right, terrific.
As well I'm here, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah, absolutely. But, you know, it's terribly sad, isn't it, when somebody like George Harrison, who contributed such a huge amount to the cultural development of the 20th century, loses his life early through disease. It's horrible.
Yeah, but many people do, of course. But,
Yeah, of course
I
they do,
always
yeah.
slightly, I'm sort of have mixed feelings about celebrating birthdays of people who are not actually alive anymore, because it's not really his birthday, is it?
No, it's not his birthday.
I don't
it's the
wanna
day.
be- I don't
No,
wanna
you're
be
right.
harsh.
No, you're right. It's the day on which he was born. But I still think that's very significant in terms of the Beatles. I don't think.
I'll tell you what I saw last night, which
Yeah.
you would have loved,
Okay.
and you may wish to watch it on the iPlayer.
Yes.
BBC 4,
Yes.
very often, quite late on a Saturday night, does these really interesting music programmes.
Okay, yeah.
And they did this one about the sort of the birth of the album,
Oh,
and
yes.
how albums suddenly became the thing
Right.
in the late 60s. And they talked about, and they had lots of sections on different bands and stuff like that, but they talked specifically about the Beatles doing Sgt. Pepper.
Yes.
And the guy who was narrating it was talking sort of to George Martin and a few other people.
It's very interesting, that.
What?
No, it's very interesting. I wish I'd seen that programme, that's all.
I thought you'd been sarcastic.
No.
But what they said was that this guy who was narrating was talking to somebody else. I can't remember exactly who it was. Who
Yes.
said he saw all these young men going into this studio.
Yeah.
And it was almost as if everyone outside was expecting them to come out having split the atom. I mean, it was that important.
Yeah.
At that
What,
particular
Sgt.
time.
Pepper's?
Culturally, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But the eyes of the world were sort of on this one studio, waiting to see what was going to come out of it. Almost like a scientific process.
Do you mean even before anybody had heard Sgt. Pepper's,
Yeah.
the music industry sort of knew that this was something
Yeah.
terribly special?
Yes, because
Well-
they knew that suddenly, here was good. Because up until then,
Yeah.
they hadn't really done a proper album.
That's right.
And this was going to be the thing that was going to take off. Bob Dylan started doing it.
Yeah.
Then the Rolling Stones had
Well-
kind of done a couple of albums, and this was going to be the kind of the pinnacle of the album genre, if you like.
You're absolutely right, because what happened was, as I understand it, having read a lot of the Beatles books, is that up until then, every album had 8 tracks on one side and 8 tracks on the other.
Yeah.
And they were all individually
And they
named.
tended to be more like just individual songs.
Yeah, it was
So
like- yeah, it was.
That's just what this programme's about, is that
Yeah.
the concept of an album,
Yeah.
where you'd actually kind of, tell a story through it, maybe.
Well, that's the very thing that Paul McCartney did. He went in one day and said, let's have alter egos. And then they spent about half an hour working out the name, Sgt. Pepper's. But then, as I understand it, Sgt. Pepper's was the first album that ran from one track into another without, a 30-second gap in between them all.
Yeah.
And it just became like a musical tapestry.
Yeah, like a symphony.
Yes, a symphony.
Absolutely.
That's right, yeah.
Now,
yeah.
I've got some other good news for you, which
Oh,
we
yes?
may get into a little bit later on. Do you know that you see me doing this on my iPhone and also on my
Yeah,
iPad,
yeah.
that I can unlock it with my fingerprint, right? You know that?
I didn't know that, actually.
Did you not know that?
No.
Well, you can do it with lots of things now.
Wonder if mine has the same facility.
I don't think it does.
You sure?
Yes, I'm very sure.
Okay.
However, you can now go to a bar in North London,
Yes.
Camden to be precise, where
Yes.
we did a show at Dingwalls, and use your fingerprint to order a pint of beer and pay for it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What, you mean where you would normally put your swipe card? There's a machine where you can put your finger on.
You just put your finger on a
Is
scanner.
that right?
Yeah.
And is it the same machine that's just been adapted to fingerprints?
Well, it'll be similar technology,
Yeah, yeah.
if you like, that
Yeah.
they use on iPhones and iPads.
Yes, I
And
suppose.
basically,
right, yeah.
the logic is that you will be able to use your finger to
Yes.
pay for stuff, which will mean you don't have to carry credit cards.
Yes.
You don't have to carry cash. And it'll be the way
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that
It's
is
a
the way forward.
biometric payment, it's called.
I don't like the old touch card thing. I very rarely use it because I'm always worried that I'll touch it twice and pay twice, or that somebody will manage to extract my details from within their machine or something like that.
I don't know why you're bothered.
Eh?
I don't know why you're so bothered
Why?
about being ripped off. You've
Well,
got loads of money.
Oh, no, that's
have.
ridiculous. No, somebody gets access to your bank account.
But you've got about 50 different bank accounts.
you don't-
I
you
mean,
don't
you've
have
got
any
one
money.
bank account with 12 grand and you don't even know where it is.
There's a fellow here called Jim, and he says, Porky talking about driving the baker's van. He really is the original 2-ton Ted from Teddington, and he drove the baker's van. Where's that from?
What?
Where's that from?
I don't have no idea. Wasn't it Benny Hill or something?
Benny Hill, that's right. Yeah, the fastest milkman in the West. Ernie!
I met a milkman this morning who listens to the show,
Ernie.
actually.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you that story in a moment, because we have to speak to Peter Conradi, who is, of course, the Sunday Times foreign editor. We need to get
Yeah.
a little bit of intellectual
Yeah.
input into the show.
Yes.
Peter, a very good morning. Very good afternoon to you, I should say.
Good afternoon, yes.
Yeah.
Well, intellectual input.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Well, I mean, I was just mentioning earlier before the news, Jodie Foster's amazing, stand against Donald Trump and sort of raising her fist in the air and trying to make the middle class agents of Hollywood rise up in some kind of revolution.
Yes. I mean, it's Trump. It's always Trump, isn't it? But I mean, Trump himself, meanwhile, has been upsetting the French. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh no, I didn't know.
No, he was, because he gave a talk at a kind of a meeting of fellow Republicans yesterday, and he's already last weekend he was slagging off Sweden and saying all sorts of strange things were happening in Sweden. He's now talking about Paris and saying he's got a friend called Jim. We don't know quite who this Jim is, and Jim always used to like going to France, but he doesn't go to Paris anymore because Paris isn't as Paris used to be.
Right.
So of course, cue all sorts of stuff on social media.
Yeah, who is Jim?
Well, exactly. Who is is Jim, precisely. The French are sort of up in arms and mocking him, as you'd expect. We've got the very glamorous mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, who is posed very fetchingly on social media opposite or next to Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse, sort of waving at him. And, it's another round of, who's Trump going to upset next, really?
Yeah, right. I mean, this kind of stage show and roller coaster ride can't go on forever, can it? I mean, what are your kind of guys over in America saying, your sort of political types, your correspondents there? I mean, are they seeing this as something that will eventually just peter out, or what?
Well, I mean, I think there are two things going on. There is kind of Trump, the showman, on the surface, doing all this kind of blustery stuff and keeping his core supporters energized and just sort of stirring it up, shaking it up, disrupting, whatever you want to say. But then, if you look at some of the people that he has appointed, and we got a new one this week, a guy called McMaster, who's going to be the new National Security Advisor, who takes over from the previous National Security Advisor, who only lasted 24 days. I mean, he's in American terms, he's a former lieutenant general. He's a kind of a serious guy. Yet another former general, actually, in the administration. This is getting more generals in it than a sort of a Latin American junta.
Yeah.
But these guys know what they're doing, and there are some quite serious guys there. So maybe this is just a kind of a clever tactic by Trump that he's the one that puts on the show that keeps the crowds happy. But underneath it all, there's some serious people doing some serious stuff, and they always sort of step out to kind of, he might say something a little bit crazy, but they then quietly clarify it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Do you know what I think, Pete? I think Tony Blair's attempt to re-emerge on the political scene last week backfired so badly on him and will accelerate the movement around the world that people don't want to be politically correct anymore. They don't want to be told by people like Tony Blair that if you object to immigration, you're a racist. And I think that is now being shown in the ballot box. People don't necessarily stand up and say it, but they're doing it in the ballot box. They did it in America. They've done it here.
They have, and they're going to. There are signs that they're going to do it elsewhere in Europe. I mean, we've spoken before about France, where there's a really big election coming up, presidential election coming up in April. Marine Le Pen is doing very well indeed. And I mean, she's the Le Pen name has always been fairly toxic over here because we think of her dad, and he said all sorts of, appalling anti-Semitic things, stuff about the gas chambers and the Nazis, all that. He was clearly beyond the pale. He was a very shocking guy. But, his daughter isn't really. And if you put his daughter, Marine, into a British political context, she'd be, similar to UKIP in her views.
Well, she's largely disowned her father's mad views anyway, hasn't she?
They've really fallen out. I mean, it's turned really quite acrimonious between them. So you look in France, a lot of people are going to vote for her. Whether she makes it or not is not clear. And it's the same thing elsewhere in Europe, in Holland, even in Germany. There's a kind of a backlash against migration and so on. So there is a much broader wave which is taking slightly different forms across the continent.
Sure. And just in your paper tomorrow, are you going to be saying, Pete, that it's all over for Labour like everybody else has done this week? What's your take on that?
I think we will be putting the boot in rather comprehensively, actually. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't like to reveal any secrets that our political editor, Tim Shipman, very good journalist, has got.
We know him well.
Yes.
We do know him well, yes.
Yeah, but I mean, I think, no, it's not looking too good for Paul Jeremy, is it?
It really isn't, but he's going to hang on for grim death. Indeed. Pete, listen, thank you very much indeed. Of course, there'll be huge coverage of all the Six Nations coming up in the Sunday Times as well. Now, coming up next, Mr. Parry, I'm going to be giving you a tiny little quiz on how posh your house is.
Oh, okay.
And I'll be able to tell you at the end of the quiz whether you are as posh as you think you are.
No, I don't think I'm posh. I think I'm the man of the people. I am a working man.
Really?
When did you last go to Wetherspoons?
Probably last time you dragged me into one.
Exactly.
It's probably why I would never go again. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics on the warm-up. Leeds, Sheffield Wednesday coming up a little bit later on. 12:30 kick-off in 10 minutes away. I'll be asking you about Leeds and Sheffield in a moment.
Indeed.
I can, however, reveal to you the results of the 1 minute moan.
Great.
I have had it communicated to me that the winner is
Mr.
Michael Parry.
Hey! Woo, woo, woo.
Look how happy you are.
What a victory!
I have no idea how that could have possibly
what a
happened.
Victory. And I even forgot to say it was Ed Ball's 50th birthday. I still won it.
And it was also only a 50-second moan because he ran out of juice before the end.
Well, it's because normally I run over, and you're always threatening to disqualify me if I run over, so I keep it short.
Now, we asked people earlier on for tweets on things that they had lost their jobs over.
Can I just read this one first about the chap I sacked wrongly?
Yeah.
This is from...
Well, this is a COD tweet.
Yes, that's right. This is from a chap in the north. He says, my wife has left me, my child hates me, I now sleep rough on a park bench, I'm an alcoholic, and I never got my extension finished at home. Thanks, Porky. John. And John was the pseudonym I gave to the chap who, unfortunately, I sacked
by
wrongly.
mistake.
Because I got the wrong guy.
Well, he should have been grateful that you were big enough to actually rehire him instead of just trying to bury your mistake, which is what you would have normally done.
Yeah, but I think those 2 hours in which he was sacked, you know what I mean, or 3 hours, I think it wrecked his life, to be honest.
I'm sure it did.
Never the same again.
Well, people get very badly affected by getting fired.
Yes,
How about this from Chris? He says, I was sacked by Newcastle United Football Club for drinking on the job. I didn't help them win the league, but I was still sacked by a football club. They rehired me as well, he said.
Well, that is disgraceful. That is disgraceful for drinking on the job. Nobody should do that. And yet, I have to say, during the heyday of Fleet Street, in which we worked in the 80s, most people were intoxicated most of the time.
Well, an awful lot of them were, yeah. But, of course, we don't live in that kind of world anymore.
No, we don't. No.
Here's one that says, the more I listen to Porky, says Nick, I'm convinced he lives in a parallel universe.
Yes.
He knows nothing but tells us he's the font of all knowledge. He is never wrong, except he always is.
Most things I talk about usually work out. For instance, I've had a very congratulatory couple of tweets this morning because one of the newspapers this morning is on a huge feature on the East India Company, and the congratulatory tweets say, Mike, we heard that first from you a couple of weeks ago. Why are you always ahead of the game?
Do you know what's really eerie? I don't know whether you've seen in the Mirror today. They've got a great big spread on the East India Company. And
I've just told you that.
Huh?
Are you mad? I've just told you that.
You've just told me what?
That there is a huge spread on the East India Company today, yes?
Yes, I've just told you that.
No, I told you, and
you've
just repeated it to me. Yes, so you're not listening?
No.
And what do you think's eerie about it?
I think it's eerie because you've been banging on about it for absolutely weeks and weeks and weeks, and I have no interest in it at all. I don't understand Taboo. I don't know why it's on television and why it's so popular, and I really don't understand why anybody's fascinated by what happened with the East India Company.
By the way, after I did the Porky Vision the other night, which, was great.
And it's still available on Facebook Live.
Yeah, on Facebook Live, that's right. By all accounts, it was great. But I didn't just mention a bit of the old Halcyon at the end, the hotel one, and then somebody very unkindly said, you haven't seen the last episode. It happened 3 nights ago. Why didn't you tell us about that?
Yeah.
Well, that's because I don't like to ruin people's viewing if they haven't seen it yet.
Is that right?
However, I have seen the last episode.
Oh, good.
And
well, why don't you tell us next Porky Vision?
It just ran out of steam.
Yeah,
just
don't tell us now.
Don't
tell us now. We haven't got any time on this show.
No, right.
It's only a 2-hour show. We've only got about half an hour to go.
Okay.
Let's hear from Sunderland manager David Moyes instead.
Indeed.
Here he is discussing his time at Everton ahead of the game this afternoon.
We had to start at the bottom end. I think the 3 or 4 years before I took over at Everton, they had bobbed along the bottom, just avoided relegation. And in the main, we built it up, and I think most of the years we're certainly in the top 10, challenging for Europe in many of the years. And I mean, still we qualify for the Champions League when you think we had very little budget. But fortunately enough, we were able to build a club. Fortunate enough, I had owners and chairman at Everton who were loyal and stuck with me. And over the years, we were able to bring in Tim Cahill's, Andy Johnston's, Mikel Arteta's, Stephen Pienaar's, you go on, Jagielka, Baines, Coleman, Howard, Phil Neville. You could go on the names which we brought in. And that recruitment was all probably the reason why Everton went on to probably be in the strong position they're in today.
Is he trying to take credit for how well Everton are now doing since he left?
No, I
think it sounds like that.
No, Davey's not that sort of guy.
Are you sure?
I got to know Davey Moyes very well when he was at Everton, and he's a terrific guy and had a terrific
still in touch with him, are you?
Character and personality. I dropped him a line, and he
didn't reply.
Well, I'm not saying that. I don't wish to go into the ins and outs of my relationships with people in high places.
No, of course.
But no, I don't think he was. I think he was. I think what he was really doing was giving Sunderland fans hope. Look. It might look bad now, but, at Everton I was able to do this. And I'm sure because of the sort of guy
Everton were never bottom of the league, though, were they, under him? I know they got down to quite close to the relegation area.
Funny enough, in our second season, we were down to 17th.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing him at Southampton after we lost there. And And we had a conversation when I first heard the word second seasonitis. He said, that's what it is. He said, I inherited somebody else's team last season. I was able to bump them up.
No, I remember that.
He said,
but I mean,
now
still,
that I've started taking it apart and putting it back together again, I had problems.
But now the problem he's got is Sunderland have had a couple of decent results, and yet they are still bottom of the league, aren't they?
They're not moving.
And they're not likely to get anything out of the game today. Even I would concede that.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty fascinating to see who goes down this season because all the clubs have had their own mini rallies, haven't they?
Well, apart from Leicester, basically.
Apart from Leicester, and maybe apart from Palace, who really have had just individual results rather than a rally. But
well, you see, Big Sam is now blaming the players.
Well, do you know what? I found that quite interesting, actually. Funny you should say that, because some of the headlines this morning said Sam rage at flops, right? And so he's given it to his players, which must mean that he has gone down the road of you've got to be frightened of me and frightened for your job.
There's nothing wrong with that. I was listening to the guy who was doing a pay-per-view this morning with Andy Townsend and Cass.
Yeah, what was his name?
He was from The Sun. Paul Jibbings.
Oh, Jiggins.
Jiggins,
yeah,
that's right.
Jiggins, yeah, right.
And he was actually at the press conference, and he said, Sam basically volunteered all this. It wasn't anybody dragging it out of him. It wasn't anybody saying, do you blame the players? He voluntarily sort of came up with this particular reason why Crystal Palace were not doing as well as he wanted them to.
Yes. He says, I'm struggling with the players staying with the game plan. If they do that, they'll have a better chance of a result. So the players are responsible. My experience and qualifications are far greater than theirs.
Yes.
So I think what he's doing in a very, very stark fashion is telling those people who's in charge.
Yeah, he's basically saying, don't do a Leicester.
Well, he's basically
don't
saying,
make out that you know better than I do.
He's basically saying my way or highway, pal. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They need to grasp what I tell them because there is still time to turn it round. When they talk about tactics and systems, that's fine. But they are the players and they are paid to play. I'm the manager and the systems and tactics are my expertise, not theirs. The advice I've given over the years has to have been pretty good because I've been managing at this level for a long time now. So I really got stuck into them and told them, you listen to me and you get on with it.
Yeah, or maybe he's just distancing himself from what is maybe the inevitable final time that he actually does go down. You've seen the time, by the way.
Yeah, but just to finish on it, funny enough, our old pal Ian Wright, Wrighty endorses what he said and said the players have got to pull their fingers out. Even Big Sam doesn't have a magic wand.
Yeah, well, exactly right, Mr. Wright. Still 0-0 up there between Leeds and Sheffield Wednesday.
Yes.
Adrian just said there that he thinks Leeds just edges it over Sheffield.
I think Leeds is a great city, honestly, I really do. I mean, I would regard Manchester as the capital of the North for obvious reasons, cultural reasons.
Would you regard Liverpool as the cultural capital of the North? You might upset a few Everton fans now.
Well, the only reason I say Manchester is because Manchester is a much bigger city than Liverpool, and it also spreads out into the metropolis.
I found Manchester to be terribly provincial when I was there.
They are. Northern cities are provincial.
It's a very
by
provincial
nature.
sort of centre.
They are.
Because we stayed, when we played the dance house,
yes,
we stayed right in the centre of Manchester.
We
right?
did, yeah.
That is the centre of Manchester.
Yes.
And I found it very quiet, to be honest.
Hang on, where did we stay? I can't remember.
Well, we stayed in that the hotel that was right on the corner, opposite the more or less just opposite where the dance house was.
Dance house. Oh yeah, I remember now. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we did. Yeah. Well, no, that wasn't actually the centre. That wasn't the centre. Seriously, that was off centre. I mean, the centre is really Piccadilly and Deansgate. Yeah. They're the two main roads.
Well, maybe I didn't go there.
No, you didn't actually. And I find it a buzzing, vibrant city. I lived there for like 18 months. I worked for the Express. Leeds, I did a lot of work out when I was.
I didn't ask you whether you worked in these places. I asked you which city was better.
Yeah, well,
I don't want to hear about your career every 5 minutes.
Did you say between Leeds and who?
Sheffield, because they're playing each other.
Okay, Sheffield. I've not got a lot of experience at Sheffield.
No,
haven't
don't
been
like
there.
Sheffield.
I went to an interview to Sheffield University once.
I don't care what you did in Sheffield.
I didn't rate it really as a city that I want to spend the next 3 years in.
Yeah, good. Now, I don't want to spend the next 3 years trying to get the answer to a question either. Yeah. Now, I told you about this posh quiz I'm going to give you, right? So you need to tell me how many of these things you have in your house.
Okay.
Right? Now, this probably counts for any number of the houses that you've got. So, but I think for the purposes of accuracy, you'll have to tell me how many houses you're going to count here. You can't count any house that that's in your family. It has to be, one or two houses.
Okay.
So you're only going to count Gosport and Stockbroker Bell, right?
And what about Orwell Quay?
Orwell Quay. Okay, so you count three of your places.
Okay,
all right. All right. Do you have an Arga?
No.
Okay.
Not big enough, really. The places aren't big enough to cope with one. And anyway, they're useless Argas. They take hours to heat up.
Just a simple question.
Okay.
All right. Do you want to tell me a story about how you once went to work for Arga or something?
No.
All right. Number two. Do you have any silver photo frames?
Yes.
Okay.
But they're stainless steel.
Well, they're not silver then, are they?
Well, I mean, they look silver, but they're stainless steel.
No, stainless steel is not silver.
Okay, well, I have got silver ones as well.
You have?
I have.
Okay, so I'll mark you down one.
Okay.
Do you have silver birds?
Silver birds?
Yes.
What, you mean ornaments?
Yes.
No, why would anybody have those?
Because that's apparently, if you're posh, you have things like a
Rubbish.
pair of silver partridges or pheasants.
That's a nonsense.
Adorning the centre of the table.
No, a big no.
Country birds. How about decanters?
I've got a load of decanters.
Doesn't surprise
I've got
me.
about 8, actually.
They're all empty, are they?
No, I've
What
got
have you got in
brandy,
them?
sherry, port.
You don't drink any of that stuff?
No, but I keep them there in case somebody comes in.
How long's it been there? About 10 years?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think you should probably decant it and get rid of it.
Yeah.
How about canteens?
Canteen of cutlery?
Yes.
No. Hang on, let me just think. Not actually a canteen, but I have got some very expensive sets of cutlery.
That's
but they
not
didn't,
the same.
They didn't come in a wooden box.
It needs to come in a wooden box.
No, I
It
haven't
needs
got
to be
no,
posh.
No.
Hat boxes and pins.
Absolute. Oh, wait a minute. Have I got a hat box? Let me think.
Why would you have a hat box?
I've got a hat
Maybe
box.
one of your ex-girlfriends left it
No,
there or
no,
something
no. I tell
before
you what, I
raced
have
off
got
to
a hat box
Ascot in a helicopter.
for my Panama hat.
Okay.
You laughing at?
Why have you got a Panama hat?
Because Jeffrey Boycott told me to get one when I used to work with him. He said it really is great for keeping the sun off your head.
Do you have a silver salver?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Why?
Somebody gave it me with a
Apparently
housewarming
you're
present.
supposed to keep it in the hall, upon which you can put letters both sent and received.
No, mine has the condiments on top of it.
Condiments?
Yes.
Well, like what?
Salt, pepper, and that sort of stuff.
That sort of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the draft excluder?
Yeah, I like draft excluders because when you live in apartment blocks, the wind tends to come up the lift shaft, and they're necessary.
Well, do you live near a lift shaft?
Yes, I do.
What sort of building is it?
Well, it's a building with lifts, so everybody who lives in a building with lifts lives near a lift shaft,
No,
because
you
if they
don't.
didn't, they wouldn't
That's
be able to
not
get the lift to go down,
That's
would
rubbish.
they, you
That's absolute
twerp?
rubbish. Have you not been to buildings where the lift goes up in the middle, and the hotel rooms then all go out from the sides? So you're nowhere near a lift.
Yeah.
How about a saggy sofa?
Saggy sofa?
Yeah, preferably overstuffed and probably chintzy.
I would say I've got one of those.
One
yes,
of those?
a really big one, which you could which I often fall asleep on lengthwise. Yes, that's right.
What, you fall asleep on a sofa?
Yeah.
And when do you wake up?
Later.
Middle of the night?
Yeah, that's right. That
And
sort of
stagger
thing.
off to bed?
Sometimes.
What about a bellboard?
A bell board?
Yeah.
What, you mean like in a stately home where you see the bell ringing
Yeah.
when it's summoned from another room? No, of course I haven't got one of them.
Preferably, it says here, preferably a broken bellboard in the kitchen.
No.
Or down a sort of a back alley of the house.
No.
So that doesn't count. Okay.
No.
What about a ha-ha?
A what?
A ha-ha.
I don't know what a ha-ha is.
A ha-ha is used to divide two pieces of land, often a garden from a field, without spoiling the view like a hedge or a fence may.
Oh, I see.
I've
Like a
actually got
trestle.
one of these. I've got
Like
one
a
of
trestle?
No, it's not necessarily a trestle. It's just a sort of a break, if you like, in the property.
There is one of those in the grounds
Well, you
of
haven't got
my
one, 'cause-
Surrey property.
No, but that's not yours.
Well,
is
I
it?
pay for it through the service
No, you
charges, so
don't.
the answer is
No,
yes.
No, it's a
No,
shared.
in fact,
you haven't got any fields around your property.
funny
You live in
enough-
South London.
Funny enough, it's being replaced at the moment because the wood had rotted. So
No.
the answer is yes.
No, I'm not counting that.
Yes.
You want to count that, do you?
Yes.
Well, it doesn't count. I'm not counting it. Horses. I suppose you're going to tell me you've got horses now as well.
I haven't got horses, but I do feed horses in at least 2 of my locations.
Right, okay. Let's see what you've got here. Properly, without telling any fibs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 to 9. It says you are upper middle.
Thank you.
Oh, excuse me. You've just been telling me you're working class.
Yeah, I'm working class.
But according to this, you are close to being posh, but not quite.
Well, there you go. I never said I was posh.
You can still hold your head up high when inviting pretty much most of the population into your house.
Excellent.
But best offer to meet your upper friends in a restaurant or cafe somewhere until you sort a few things out. So actually, you've got a pretty manky place, which you can't invite anybody into who's got any class or style.
That is the perfect definition for me. Upper middle class, but yet I mix with the working classes. For instance...
You don't mix with the working classes. You travel first class on the train in order to avoid the great unwashed, as you put it.
Yeah.
You make sure that you always travel first class on planes, and you go into special lounges to avoid, in your words, the great unwashed. You've called people who live in council houses scum.
No,
how
didn't.
exactly?
I've never said that.
How exactly do you interact with the ordinary working man?
Well, let me read you a couple of tweets here, right? Jane says, was that fat, drunk and careless person? Are you sure it wasn't old Porky who was up in front of the beak yesterday?
Indeed.
That's having a laugh here. And another one here from Pete. He says, was the producer who gave the 1-minute moan to Porky with him for a few hours in Wetherspoons
I think
yesterday?
it must have been. I think there's no other explanation, is there?
And old Quacker, whoever that is, says, Porky is an animal. He gets a point on the quiz and he acts like he's won everything. He then starts shouting out like a baboon.
Yes.
Woo, woo, woo.
I know, it is a bit embarrassing. A couple of tweets here for you. One from Rob, who says, another Porky backtrack. I'm sure I once heard him say he was going to get an Arga, and I'm sure there's a picture somewhere. No. Very possibly.
No, I tell you what that was. That's interesting. I was in Chester one time, and I walked down Lower Bridge Street, and a shop that I used to know as like something else had become the Arga shop.
I see.
And I was standing at the window. I took a picture once. So what I did say was...
Oh, you said you might buy one or something.
When I retire to Northumberland and get my cottage near the beach, in somewhere like Seaton Delaval or something like that.
Is there such a place?
Yes.
Cottage-wise, I mean, can you buy the cottage that's there, or do you have to build it?
Well, I could do either, really. I suppose you'd buy this plot of land.
Well, I'll tell you what. When you're going to look for those places,
right?
Be very careful. Because there's a amazing story today about a house hunter down in Wiltshire, in my part of the world, Malmesbury, which is not a million miles away from Devizes, right? Yeah. This house hunter goes to look at a place, and unfortunately for her, she walks over a piece of wood, which is covering a well, and the piece of wood gives way. She falls 30 feet down into a well. Yes. Right? And you know how tiny those old-fashioned wells are.
Absolutely. Got stuck at the bottom, immersed in water,
they actually
apparently.
Had to float. They had to throw her down a hose pipe so that she didn't sink and drown.
That's right.
But the bad news is that the estate agent has now been ordered by the Health and Safety Executive to pay a £200,000 fine.
I know.
Because they weren't...
Health and safety.
Yeah, because they didn't make it safe enough, because they were told that this plank, if you like, was likely to give way. Yeah. That's an incredible amount of money, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's not one of those cases where, she was walking through undergrowth and a secret well suddenly opened up below her feet. This was, as you quite say, it was a cover for the well. It was made of wood, and the wood was rotten. She stepped on it, went straight through. It's terrible.
Absolutely awful. Here's one from Chris. It says, Porky's apartment is full of decanters and rubbish from Argus.
Excuse me.
It does sound a bit like that, actually.
A bit harsh. Listen, can I tell you about something?
Yes.
There's an advert today in several newspapers, and do you know what it says?
What?
It's the advert is a legal notice, and it is asking if anybody is claiming to be an unknown child or former band member owed money by David Bowie.
Right.
This is your final chance to claim a share of the £80 million fortune left by David Bowie.
Right.
Lawyers for the singer's estate, and it's placed in his real name, David Robert Jones, so that claims must be made before May the 4th.
Right. Isn't this some kind of sort of
legal procedure.
Belt and braces operation, so that if somebody, say 5 years down the road, decides to sue his son for something that he says David Bowie owes him for, they'll say, well, terribly sorry, you should have done it.
The deadline ran out May the 4th.
Yeah.
But do you know what I think will happen? And we'll put this story in the diary. I bet you in the days before May the 4th, a succession of people will claim to be, a secret Bowie child, or maybe, say, well, I played with him once, in a gig in Richmond.
Some of them might even be genuine,
because,
as he said himself in many interviews, there were parts of his life and periods of the 70s that he doesn't actually remember very well.
No, that's right, yeah. But isn't that amazing?
That is extraordinary.
Listen, the other thing I loved today was, some newspapers use photography extremely well.
Yes.
Now, you've heard my famous story about the bothy, haven't you?
Yes, I think several times.
Yes, exactly.
I don't want to hear it again.
No, I'm not going to tell it again, but just to let everybody know, it was a ghost story about a chap who...
Yeah, well, we don't want to hear it. There's only 9 minutes left, less than 9 minutes.
Hang on, who arrived at a bothy and was... and he went in, but he never came out. Nobody ever saw him again. But look at this picture of this bothy. Isn't that nice?
That's a great picture.
Now, just to explain to our listeners, it says the shot of the Curragh Bothy.
Yeah.
A refuge for hikers below the...
Why are you doing it in an Alan Brazil voice?
Well, no, I'm doing it in the Scottish voice.
The snow was as white as a tin of Dulux paint.
That's right. This shot of Curragh Bothy, a refuge for hikers below the Cairngorm's highest peaks, was runner-up and... What are you laughing at? Was runner-up on Scottish Landscape Photographer of the Year, Jimmy.
Jimmy?
No, it doesn't say Jimmy then, actually.
You just put that bit in.
I did that.
His Steptoe says this, buying a house near the sea nowadays is not clever, Porky. Your garden shed will be washed away with erosion within 15 years. Well, that's a very good point.
Yes.
There was a picture, in fact, talking of landscape pictures, of somebody's shed falling off a cliff, wasn't there? Down in the West Country.
Yeah, it just completely fell off the cliff, and at the bottom it was flattened, wasn't it?
Yeah. Because, I mean, people have seen their gardens literally shrink back to nothing.
Yes, they have, yes.
So maybe he's right. Maybe you shouldn't actually, in any way, live near the coast.
Right, now, we've got a very exciting weekend. Let's tell our listeners what we're up to tomorrow.
OK, well, we are going to be doing a show ahead of the EFL Cup final, between Manchester United and Southampton.
Yes.
And we're going to be up very close to Wembley, not quite in Wembley.
Yes.
We'll be talking to a whole host of various people who are involved in the cup final this year, but also who might have been involved in cup finals from previous years.
Yes, that's right.
And it's a show from 1 till 3. The kick-off is at 4:30, of course.
And where's it from? The Hilton Hotel?
Well, I'm not sure if we want to give the location away, do we?
Why not?
Because you might get a load of people turning up.
Well, I like mixing with the listeners.
No, you
I haven't got a
don't.
problem
You
with
hate it.
No, I don't.
Do you remember we were down at the XL?
Yeah.
It was a great moment, right? We were
was
live
that?
talking to each other, having a conversation.
right.
We were standing at this stand.
Yes, we were.
And meanwhile, Harry Redknapp was just slightly off to our right.
He was, yeah.
And there was a queue of people forming to
Speak
meet
to
Harry
Harry.
and have a picture taken with
yeah,
Harry.
yeah.
And there was a guy sort of immediately to your right. He was
That's right.
there with his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And we had a table that we were both standing talking
Using
on.
as a desk.
And
yeah.
he was drinking out of a bottle of water. He finished the bottle of water and put it down right in front of you.
Oh, he reached past me.
As if
if I wasn't there.
As if you weren't there, even though you had headphones
Yeah,
on.
that's right,
And you
yeah.
were talking.
Yeah.
And just put it down as if it
That's
was
right.
garbage.
That's right.
I've never seen your face look quite so dark.
Well, what did I do?
And you just you picked it up and handed it back to him.
I did, and I shoved it in his chest.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of, don't rile me, pal.
But that's what I mean. You don't
Yeah.
like being interfered with in the public eye.
No, but
So
most people are very
I'm protecting
good-natured.
you.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The warm-up with the two mics on Talk Sport.
Help! I need somebody's help. Not
You certainly
just
do.
anybody's help. I really need somebody's help.